Thank you so much. I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker today, Ruth Cavins, the Executive Director at the United Way, there in that role for about 4 years. So please help me welcome Ruth.
Hello. Okay, this is a fun group of people.
It is a really fun group, very fun group.
I'm going to start with a joke because the octopus, trivia inspired me. How many tickles does it take to make an octopus laugh? 10 tickles.
I would have expected Zoe, my daughter, to tell me that joke, and now I'll have to surprise her this evening.
Sorry, I love dad jokes. Well, hello everybody. I am Ruth Cavins, and I'm the director for United Way Payne County. This is my 4th year working there, but this is my 5th campaign because it's like, I think it's like COVID years. It just kind of feels like dog years. But very, very excited and glad to be in this role. We are going to talk to you a little bit about United Way today, but mostly we're going to give you some statistics about our community today. So our mission for United Way is to improve lives of individuals in Payne County by uniting resources. That is most visible this time of the year because we are doing our annual campaign from September 1st to hopefully by mid-December we will raise $1 million. So you see the thermometers go up, and the keeper of the thermometers is right here, Gary Teal. He puts up all those thermometers around town for us, and he goes out, every time I text him, he goes out and he puts the tape on to make the mounts go up. He did call me yesterday, hey, is it time to up the thermometers yet? And I was like, not yet. Not yet. We have a lull. So you see the thermometers go up, you see activities happening around town. We have the Juke Joint Jog, the Pistol Pete run in Perkins. We had a Rockin' for United Way concert in Cushing. So you see lots of visible things. And if you don't work at one of our major workplace campaigns, you probably also got a letter in the mail. We're just everywhere this time of the year. So this is what we do that the majority of the community sees. It's very visible. We're raising $1 million in a very short amount of time. And the way that United Way campaigns are successful in that is that they ask every member of the community to participate. So we ask everybody to give what they can give. So that's probably what you know us most for. But I have discovered since I started in this role that a lot of people don't understand the rest of what United Way does. So our vision is that Payne County is a community where individuals thrive because our neighbors care. And living in Payne County, you probably feel that on a daily basis. But there are a lot of people in our community that don't feel that. They are struggling. So our board had a great strategic planning session last year, and we decided that to help the community better understand the issues that our county is facing and the reason why United Way exists was to create a report, which we partnered with Spears School of Business, and create a community status report so that we can just use publicly available statistics compiled in a single report so that anybody in the public can read the report and understand the major issues that we're facing in our community. So Abby kind of inherited this project with her new role.
Yes, absolutely. So Rebecca Easton, many of you know Rebecca, she helped kick off this project, and then I helped drive it across the finish line with Ruth. So the QR code, I encourage you to scan that. That's going to take you directly to the report. We're going to be giving you snippets of the report, but I'll tell you, I learned so much about Payne County that I had no idea about in doing this data, doing this research. So you can access the whole report there. We're going to have snippets that we'll pull out that you can see along the way in the presentation.
Absolutely. So when we're not in our campaign, in our active campaign role, United Way does several other functions within the community. So we are in. Keep it back up for a second. Oh, okay. We support 22 local nonprofit organizations, and those agencies have to apply for funding every year. Shane knows, he writes the grant application every year. And so we have a committee that reviews those grant applications, looks at the programs that each of these agencies are doing within the community. And then we do an accreditation process that makes sure that each of our agencies are operating at a really high standard for nonprofit management. And we do that first to ensure that when you give to United Way, you know that your dollars are going to organizations. You don't have to choose one. You can give it to us, and we will distribute it to 22 organizations that are meeting critical needs within our community. And the other thing is that we're making sure that we are curating, if you will, a portfolio of nonprofit agencies that are meeting the most immediate needs within our community. So,
do you mean to hit on any of these?
Go for it.
So these are just some of the main takeaways that we have, and I didn't mention this before, but we see this as being an ongoing partnership between the Spear School of Business and United Way. It's a way for us to really do research that's impacting the community, and we're trying to do more and more of this type of research. So you can see some of the key issues that are highlighted here. You know, housing, a top issue that came up. Reading proficiency, we'll dive into some of the data behind that. Crimes and how crimes have risen in Payne County. We got data that is the most recent possible data that we could get. Now with the pandemic, you're going to notice we have some things not far beyond 2020 because for whatever reason, we weren't able to access more recent data. So we're hoping that every year we'll get more and more recent data. We look at when it comes to children substantiated for victims of child abuse or neglect. Payne County has a high rise of that, and then domestic violence as well. So we'll dig into some of the data behind that, and hopefully we'll have time to answer any questions you have.
So the report starts with just basic demographic information about our community. So you can digest this when you're reading it on your own, but you can kind of see the makeup of our community. 49% female, 51% male, and the distribution of ages. And then unemployment. So we're fortunate or unfortunate, depending on how you look at this. The unemployment rate for Payne County is 2.5%. And at first glance, that seems like, wow, that is amazing. We are doing great. The flip side of that is it is really hard to hire people in our community. I'm sure I see some heads shaking. It is hard to find qualified people to be employed within our community. Fun fact, our 22 agencies contribute more than just to the social safety net of our community. They also employ about 500 people, our 22 agencies. Another sobering statistic. Sorry, it's kind of bring us down a little bit. So within Payne County, the poverty rate is over 20%. Compared to the state average of 15.6%. So that means that 1 in 5 individuals in Payne County is struggling with poverty. And poverty looks different than what you might imagine. You know, when I think of poverty, the first thing that comes to my mind is somebody standing on a street corner, a homeless person. And we learned through this research that poverty looks different in our community. It does absolutely look like that, and we do have a lot of, actually a rise of homeless people within our community, but homeless is not the line for poverty. So we have some more statistics to kind of support that.
Yeah, one of the things that we had talked about, and that statistic was very sobering for me. I thought, we're Payne County, how could we be higher than the state average? We have, the university here in Stillwater, for example, but when you look at the people that are really falling in this category, we do the case studies of one adult, a single parent with 2 kids, which is the primary kind of family makeup of we see the people that utilize services. And I can tell you at OSU, we have people that have good jobs, that even require a master's degree, that only pay in the 30s or the 40s. And when you're a single parent, I have friends that are academic advisors. They have 2 kids, recently divorced, and they fall into this category. They have a full-time job, and they are struggling to pay their bills, and they need support, and they need assistance. So this doesn't mean people that don't have jobs. We have people that are fully employed in good jobs in our city, but those jobs they don't pay as much to offset the cost of living in Stillwater. Anything you'd add to that?
Well, we just hope to dispel that myth that if you are living in poverty, it's your choice, and it's because you're not working hard enough. I guarantee you there are people who are working across our community that are struggling. The calls that we get at United Way, and we get dozens and dozens of calls every day, particularly looking for rent and utility assistance. There are people that have full-time jobs. So it is sobering.
I think the one last thing on this slide, it takes So for a single parent, 2 children, it takes a salary of approximately $88,000 to live comfortably in Payne County. I can tell you $88,000 is probably higher than a lot of the staff positions that we may see at the university, higher than a lot of the positions that we see in our community. And that I'm just referring to Stillwater because I live here. This goes beyond Stillwater and goes across all of Payne County.
And we all know that affordable housing is an issue within Stillwater. This statistic was really shocking to me. So an individual needs an hourly wage of about $16.46 per hour to have a 2-bedroom apartment in Payne County. And the average wage of renters in our county is $11.34. So this is the difference between being able to pay your rent and utilities in the same month, to be able to buy food, make your car payment. The individuals that we're talking with on a daily basis are truly making these decisions, and you all know that once you get behind in one area, it just starts to snowball, and it is so, so hard to recover from that. And so affordable housing seems like an inconvenience at first blush, but when you dig into it, you realize that it is a persistent issue that causes those that are struggling it just compounds. Food insecurity. You're seeing a theme here, right? So the Regional Food Bank reports that 13,150 people right now, today, are hungry in our county. That is a large number of people in a farming community. And over 17% of those people are children. So the food programs within the public school system are such a huge blessing to them, because for a lot of those kids, that's the food that they get at school and the backpack that they get to go home with, if they're lucky enough, is making up the majority of their calories for the day. So it's sobering.
And I didn't realize Stillwater Mobile Meals is a United Way partner.
Yes, it is. Stillwater Mobile Meals is a fantastic organization. Not only you guys know because you deliver the meals, but not only are individuals able to get a meal at a reduced rate, the funding that we give to Mobile Meals helps to subsidize those that can't afford the meals, or at a really, I think it's $4 or $5 a meal for a very nutritious meal. But the other beautiful thing is, as you guys know, is that those individuals are seeing a human every single day. They're coming to the door, they're having a conversation, and if they don't come to the door, somebody is checking on them. Okay, access to affordable child care. This and the unemployment kind of go hand in hand. The federal definition of affordable child care is 7% or less of your annual household income. Within Payne County, it costs about 12% of your annual income to pay for child care. And the child care is limited, especially if you go into Perkins and Cushing and our smaller communities, Glencoe, Ripley, Yale. Even the availability of quality child care is very, very scarce. And so for people to be able to work, you got to have child care. Yes?
Is it 12% per child?
For the household. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then our graduation rate here in Payne County is about 82%. And the statistics that we were able to pull to show the number of kids within our community is pretty neat. We also pulled statistics about reading proficiency and math proficiency, and this was a point of frustration for us.
It was. So the most recent data that Rebecca Easton was able to find was 2016, and I can validate that. We couldn't find data more recent than 2016. I did submit an open records request to our state superintendent, and I have yet to receive a response to that request. So want you to know that we tried as hard as we could to get the most recent data available as possible. But what you can see here in this chart is we can see elementary average reading proficiency and math proficiency. And, take a look at, we've got our Oklahoma average over there towards on the right compared to the national average. We're much lower than the national average. In the Stillwater school systems, we see those a little bit higher, but in Perkins, Cushing, Yale, we can see lower percentages there. And if you've been paying attention to the national headlines, reading proficiency has plummeted since the pandemic. Both of my children, they're 8 and 10, they were learning to read and write during the pandemic, and it was really hard, and we are still struggling to catch up. And we're in a house with 2 parents that have the means to be able to help their kids catch up. And so I can't even imagine for families that are struggling.
And reading proficiency is one of those statistics that has been studied so much. We know that if by 3rd grade children are not reading at a proficient level, there are lifelong consequences to that. And again, that builds right back into, are we building a workforce to support the kind of businesses that we want to bring to our community and support in our community so that everybody can thrive. So reading proficiency is so important, and you guys are reading. You guys are like hitting all the great ones. Okay, adult education and literacy. Something that was not on my radar until I started working for United Way is that within our community we have a large population of English language learners, and also individuals that have a very low, they didn't finish school, they didn't finish high school, and didn't get a GED. So 2.3% of adult population has less than a 9th grade education here in Stillwater. And for a college community, that was shocking to me. And we're talking about things like being able to read the newspaper, reading street signs, being able to pay a bill.
An application.
Application for employment, yeah. So again, at first blush, it's like, okay, that doesn't seem so bad. But when you think of an individual who's struggling because they can't fill out the application to get a job, it's just, again, one of those compounding statistics. And then health. I thought this one was interesting. Obviously, drinking within our community, and then mental health, obviously 2 issues, but then minimal fruit consumption. I thought that was interesting. I just think about the peach orchard that's no longer here.
And I dug into this a little bit because I figured the question would be, well, is this census data, does this count, college students with the binge drinking? This data, they had a regression model to be able to estimate the county percentages for all of these, but know that they were calling people, they were polling people. And I'm part of Leadership Stillwater, Class 32. I did a ride-along with a police officer last week, and we had three calls that we had to respond to, and I go to bed early, so these were all around like 8 p.m., and they were all had alcohol. Alcohol was related to what we were responding to, and these were not college students. So I think sometimes we can look at this and laugh and say, oh, it's the college students bringing it down. I don't know if it's just the college students. I think that's an issue we're seeing widespread.
Yes. And substance use, including alcohol, again, has another domino effect on other areas of success in an individual's lives. So. Access to healthcare. I was actually excited kind of about this statistic. So within Payne County, the number of people who have health insurance is pretty high, which is awesome. Think of our largest employers as Stillwater Medical Center and Oklahoma State University, who provide health insurance benefits. The people that I'm worried about are those that are uninsured, because they truly are either not going to the doctor, or they're going to the emergency room for health, and they're not getting the quality health experience that they need because that's so minimal, but also that has a greater financial impact on our hospital and our community, because the emergency room is not meant to be a walk-in clinic. So we do have the agency that supports that locally is Stillwater Community Health Center, and they provide free prescriptions and free regular maintenance, usually to people who have congestive heart failure or diabetes and are, need medication on a long-term basis. And their new women's clinic just opened last year, so they're doing great work in our community. Safety. So Mary Kellison came and spoke to an event that we had this last week. She's a police officer here within Stillwater. And when I say that crime is rising in our community, she is shaking her head vigorously in the back of the room. These statistics are old because it's what we were able to find. But just looking at rape, at 70 rapes in 2020, which is not an anomaly. More than once a week in Payne County, there is a rape happening, when you think of it that way. Other violent crimes are also on the rise. So, and again, we all know that these crimes are associated to other factors: childhood trauma, alcohol abuse, substance abuse, poverty, you know. Child abuse and neglect is also, I was the director for CASA for Kids, Court-Appointed Special Advocates, and when I had that role, I was really shocked to find out that Payne County is among, across the state, one of the highest counties for child abuse, substantiated cases of child abuse and neglect. And we know that during the pandemic, because children were not in the public school system, reports actually decreased because there was nobody they didn't have eyes on. And as soon as they got back into the classroom, we saw an uptick of reporting and continue to see an uptick of reporting. And domestic violence. Just last week, there was a report. Oklahoma is #1 in the nation for domestic violence. #1 in the nation.
I think and what stood out to me, so in 2020, 1 incident for every 200 people. And so they had 64% of the calls that came into Wings of Hope crisis line in 2022 were reports of intimate partner violence. And so hearing that study, it's obviously something that we've got a lot of work to do in the state, but also just right here in Payne County.
And Mary reported to us this week that an officer responding to a strangulation call is 300 times more likely to be killed in the line of duty. These are violent domestic violence situations. So how can you help? These statistics just, I mean, you can go through them and you roll with it and you assimilate it and you normalize it, but when you think about the individuals that are being impacted by these statistics, it's really frustrating. The way that I kind of wrap my brain around it, and the way that I'm able to wake up and keep doing this every single day, is that I know that these 22 agencies that we fund are every single day addressing these critical needs within the community. And so when I hear these stories, when I talk to these directors, it motivates me to continue to go out and do the thing that I like the least in the world, which is raising money. But there are other ways to help. Every one of our nonprofit agencies has a board of directors, and they need leaders within the community who are aware of what's happening, who are seeing it on a regular basis, to serve on their board of directors and to help influence their programming and their decision making within those organizations.
I think one thing for me, these statistics, while they are sobering, it helps give you a whole new perspective. Even as we were walking into Rotary, and I don't know this family's background or their situation, but it looks like there was a dad who I believe had some sort of, whether short-term or long-term disability that he was facing, had 2 children with him checking out of this hotel. The son was holding a very large, what would be like a container to hold water, which made me think, are they possibly homeless? Are they checking out? This is something they did overnight. It's just really opened my eyes and my perspective to just be on the lookout of what our community actually needs. And so it was helpful for me when we went through this.
So these are our partner agencies that we support through the United Way campaign. Lots of familiar faces in that group.
And then we've got a few myths that we want to bust, and we'll do this in just a couple quick minutes because we want to make sure you have an opportunity to ask any questions about what we had.
Okay, myth number 1, my donation doesn't stay here in the county. False. So 99% of every dollar that's given to the United Way of Payne County stays right here in our community. We do pay 1% to United Way Worldwide for our membership. Myth, we're forced to give to United Way. There was, back in the 80s and early 90s, there was an initiative that big corporations were requiring 100% employee participation. You might have been part of that. And that is absolutely not the model. We do ask everybody to give, and we ask everybody to give what they can. Sometimes that's money, sometimes that's volunteer time, sometimes that's just learning more about one of our partner agencies. United Way only helps people in the city of Stillwater. While most of our 22 agencies are physically located in Stillwater because it's the largest community within our county, they are serving the entire county. We know this because they write grant applications and they have to report the zip codes of the clients that they serve, so we can pinpoint exactly how many people from each of our different communities are being served by United Way agencies. Most of my donation is going to overhead and operating expenses. That is incorrect. So our 2020 IRS 990 that's our tax form that we have to report every year. We do a statement of functional expenses that breaks down programming, management, and fundraising. So 85% of the dollars that United Way raises goes right back into programming services, 9% goes to management and general expenses, and 6% to fundraising, which is really, really a good statistic for a nonprofit organization. I don't have a lot to give, so I can't make much impact. That is false. The beauty of the United Way campaign is that everybody gives what they can, and collectively we are able to raise $1 million every year, hopefully.
So you have access to the full report, but we want to make sure that we've got a couple minutes to take any questions that you may have about the data or anything else related to the presentation today.
I'm going to go first because I'm selfish and I have the mic and I can do that. Going back to something you talked about early on in the presentation, the poverty level. And I love the point that you made, and I can attest to it. I worked for 7 years on campus, and if it was not for my husband, I would have been below that poverty level, and I have a master's degree, and I was in a job that required a master's degree. So what is the solution here? I mean, how can employers pay their employees more? My wake-up call to realize it was time to move on was when I saw that Chick-fil-A was hiring managers that were making more money than me. And I thought, wow.
Boy, if we could answer that question.
Yeah, there's a whole lot that goes into that, and part of it, and my background's compensation, so I help companies figure out how to compensate their employees based upon market and internal equity, and I work with a lot of manufacturing companies, and a state institution is very different. We are dependent upon state funding, but I will say I heard that OSU is evaluating compensation much more heavily now because we can't recruit people, and when you're not able to get the talent that you need to run the organization. So, and I don't mean I'm an OSU employee and I bleed orange through and through. So this isn't a knock to the university. It's a challenge for any state-run agency that receives state funding. So I think the attention is there. And it goes back to ensuring that we're convincing the right people that state dollars need to be going to areas like higher education. Probably have time for one more question.
So one of the figures that jumped out for me here, many, and great information and great statistics, and thank you all for all that you do, including this. But the figure that really opened my eyes was it takes almost $90,000 a year to live comfortably. 88,000, I think, was the number. What does it mean to live comfortably?
To be able to pay all of your bills in the same month is the most simple explanation.
So not going into unnecessary debt. So being able to afford your bills and not going into that unnecessary
Well, it just strikes me as being high, but you guys should know. But I just mentioned here, child care would be.
Yes.
Child care and rent would certainly be part of that, but.
And that's
that was an eye-opener for me. It's way higher than I would have guessed.
And that's a single-parent household with two children.
Yeah.
Kids are expensive.
I have one. It's a fast one. I just shout out to Ruth. If you guys don't I'm a non-partner agency, but she always includes different non-partner agencies because the United Way and Ruth as a leader believes in our community and our county, and so we come together to do a lot of collaborative projects, and I really appreciate you including me. So thank you. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for having us.
Yep.